and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the top 19 books of 2019. This list was really hard to make because there are so many amazing books that I have read this year, but I did it after all of that. This list isn't in a particular order because I could not decide out of all these amazing books what order they should be in, so keep that in mind when I'm talking to you guys about these books. I couldn't even decide on the top 5 because they were so amazing, and I'm so thrilled that I got to read so many amazing books this year. So with that said, let's get straight into it. The first book on my list is Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan Mcguire. This book basically follows this character named Nancy who is sent to a home for wayward children. This home is basically a therapy home for children who have come out of fantasy worlds, such as Alice in Wonderland, for example. When she's there, some of the children start dying and she's got to figure out who's killing them and why. Basically, she goes into this mystery and tries to figure it out without meaning to. This book was one of the perfect books for me. It had the perfect blend of dark fantasy and dark elements, as well as that amazing characters. It had some representation of the LGBTQ, which was really interesting to see. I'm not sure what it's called, so I don't want to say the wrong thing. It's something I hadn't seen before, which was interesting to read about. I loved the storyline, and though I started to predict who did murder the children in the end, I was pleasantly surprised with how it was handled and the storylines, and I loved how she tackled the dark side of this rather than going to like Alice in Wonderland and Candyland and all that sort of thing. It was more of a dark fantasy world that Nancy went to, so obviously her being the main character, we focused around and seeing her path and her journey. It was so good to read about, and I'm so glad I picked it up this year. It's something I hadn't seen before, which was interesting to read about. I loved the storyline, and though I started to predict who did murder the children in the end, I was pleasantly surprised with how it was handled and the storylines, and I loved how she tackled the dark side of this rather than going to like Alice in Wonderland and Candyland and all that sort of thing. It was more of a dark fantasy world that Nancy went to, so obviously her being the main character, we focused around and seeing her path and her journey. It was so good to read about, and I'm so glad I picked it up this year. The next book on my list is Cook Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. This book is the second book in the Six of Crows duology, and I love this duology so much that I've read it twice this year. This book basically follows 6 criminals who are commissioned to perform a heist. That is basically the premise where the first book leads off, but oh boy, does so much happen. I am actually thrilled that I picked up this series. The characters in this book are so incredibly written. Leigh Bardugo does a fantastic job of creating these incredible characters. There's also some LGBT representation in this series, and oh my god, they're one of my favorite couples of all time. I absolutely love them to bits. I'm so thrilled I picked up this series, and I haven't actually picked up the Grisha trilogy yet, so please no spoilers. I'm going to pick it up. It's on my list of things to read, but I have a huge list, so I will get to it eventually. But I am really, really happy I picked this up, and I'm so thrilled to read more of her works in the future. The next book is The Way It Used to Be by Aime. This book comes with a huge trigger warning of sexual assault and drug abuse, so please be aware of that when going into this book, guys. This book basically follows this girl named Eden who one day is raped by her best friend's brother in her own room. Basically, it follows Eden throughout the course of 4 years, I believe, over the course of her high school, sophomore, junior, senior, and freshman, I believe. I do not know how American schools work, so I probably said those in the wrong order. But it follows her over the course of 4 years, which is amazing to see. It is written so beautifully, but it is so heartbreaking. Guys, I ugly cried on this book. It is so raw. You really feel the emotions that Eden is feeling through the pages of this book. Aime does a fantastic job of portraying the ugly emotions that you wouldn't see a lot of. and the different aspects of dealing with this kind of trauma, which is absolutely incredible, and I think we need more stories of this to better understand the issue. The next book is Ace of Shades by Amanda Foody. This book basically follows this character named Anine, who comes from a proper part of society and ends up going to the City of Sin, where she has to make a deal with the gang leader Leigh in order to find her mother. I loved this book. It was incredible. The magic system in this story was absolutely so unique and so interesting. It kept me intrigued the whole way. I really love seeing the character development between these two characters, as well as them trying to stumble their way through the City of Sin in order for them to each get what they need to survive. I really liked the ending, and I cannot wait to read the second book. It was really interesting to read about a character who's seen as the gang lord, who doesn't have everything held together, which I absolutely loved. So I'm really excited to pick up the second one in the new year, hopefully. The next book is A List of Cages by Robin Rao. This book is very personal to me because it has a disability representation that I can connect with and associate with, and it was very heartwarming and amazing to see my disability represented so perfectly, at least in my personal experience. I've never seen a book that actually represents my disability before, so I was really excited to see that, and I'm absolutely thrilled. Please be aware before going into this book is a very trigger warning book. It deals with child abuse and child assault, so please be aware of that before going into this book. This book basically follows these two characters named Adam and Julian. Julian was a foster brother to Adam before he was taken back by his uncle. It follows them 5 years after that has happened, and they reconnect due to Adam being an aide to the school counsellor and reconnecting with Julian, who is going to see the counsellor. It basically deals with their friendship and their romance, as you would call it, and I loved seeing that relationship develop, and also seeing how the strength of the people around you can really help you to stand up for yourself. I love this book. It is heartbreaking, it is raw, it is so emotional. Robin Rao has done a fantastic job of creating these amazing characters and this amazing moral of friendship and bromance. I love to see it. It's not something you see often, and I was so excited to read it. The next book is Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. I can't say that name, I'm so sorry. This book basically follows a witch and a witch hunter who end up being forced into an arranged marriage. The witch hunter doesn't know she's a witch, but she knows he's a witch hunter. So it basically deals with a lot of that, and oh my god, I loved it. I wasn't sure what to think. I got into it with very low expectations. I was expecting not to be overly excited about it, but oh my gosh, I loved this book. I loved the main character. She was absolutely incredible, so feisty. Firecracker is the word that comes to mind when I describe her. Very crude, so please be aware of that when you're reading this story. But she's hilarious. I absolutely love her. I was so happy to read this book, and I cannot wait to read the next one. The next book on this list is The Beautiful by Renée Ahdieh. I think that's how you say that name. I was so excited when I heard this book was coming out, because I knew it had two of some of my favourite things that I like in a book, which is New Orleans and vampires. Although Twilight isn't my favourite series anymore, I did read a lot of it when I was little, so I'm seeing a vampire book that I could actually love as I have grown up. Seeing a vampire book that I could actually come to terms and love was super exciting, and seeing it set in New Orleans, which is one of my favourite places I want to visit, I was so excited. I was so down for when I heard this, and this book did not disappoint. It basically set in 1872 in New Orleans. It follows this girl named Celine, who is running from Paris from her past. We don't know what has happened there, but you find out obviously. And she is drawn to this club called the Dear Alliance. I believe that's how you say it. Please, I'm not French, so I do not know how to pronounce things that I said in this book. And she is trying to discover the secrets of this club. Also, while this is happening, there are some murders that are taking place, and she is questioning the people around her if she can trust them or not. It is amazing. I loved it. I love the mystery in it, and I cannot wait to read the second book. 2 books I'm going to talk about together because I've already really talked about them quite a bit, so I'm just going to kind of fly through them a little bit. If you want to check out what I've said about these 2 books, I will leave all those links in the description down below so you can check those out as well. And those books are Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie and Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. These are one of my favourite books this year. I was really excited to read these to see how they compare to the movies because that's all I've really seen and I haven't really read them before, so I was excited to read them, and oh boy was I not disappointed. Alice in Wonderland's the writing style in Alice in Wonderland was so different to what I've read, and I loved it. And Peter Pan, it pretty true to the movie, which I was not expecting, but I still loved it. I love Peter Pan. It's something I've grown up on, as well as Alice in Wonderland, so I was thrilled to be able to read them, even though Alice in Wonderland was so different to the movie, but I loved it anyway. It was absolutely incredible reading experience, and I'm so glad I picked these up. While we're talking about Alice in Wonderland and Peter Pan, I'll also talk about the other classic that's on this list really quickly because I've also mentioned this book quite a bit. I'll leave all the videos where I talk about this book in the description down below, and that book is Dracula by Bram Stoker. This is a massive surprise for me. I was not expecting to love this book so much. If you do not know what Dracula is, it's basically about the first vampire recorded basically, and I loved this story so much, and I was so immersed in this story. I was like, I didn't want to put it down. I think I flew through this book because I loved it so much, and I'm so glad I picked it up. I loved so many aspects of the story, the characters, the plot, the writing style, the pacing, the tension. The tension was like cut with a knife. It was awesome. Loved it, and I'm so happy I read this. I think this is probably going to be one of my favorite books from all the years to come. The next book I'm going to talk about is kind of a bunch of novellas that are in a bind-up, and I am really happy with this bind-up. Goes to the Shadow Market by Cassandra, Clare, Rees, Brennan, Maureen Johnson, Kelly Link, and Robert Wasserman. I really happy I picked this up. I wasn't sure what to expect with this bind-up because I've read the other 2 bind-ups by Cassandra Clare in the past, and I quite enjoyed those, but I loved this one. I was so thrilled about this one. This gave so much context for the stories that I love, and through the infernal devices and the mortal instruments and the dark artifices, it created so much context and so much extra layers for these characters as well, especially Tessa and brother Zachariah. I can't give too much away obviously because of spoilers, and I also loved seeing some snippets of the Chain of Gold characters that before now I had not read anything about, and this just made me so excited for Chain of Gold. Oh my god, it's coming in 3 months. I'm so excited. Sorry guys, I'm just excited with Cassandra Clare books. But it made me fall in love with these Chain of Gold characters and getting to know them before the book comes out. It just made me so much more excited for Chain of Gold, because when Chain of Gold was announced, I wasn't that excited for them. Like, I was excited to read it, but I wasn't as excited as I have been in the past for like Dark Artifices, for example, because I didn't know the characters. I was more excited for Wicked Powers because obviously I already knew those characters and I already knew what they were like, but reading these novellas about these characters made me so excited for this series that she's going to be putting out from the Infernal Devices, and I cannot wait for March so that I can read it and devour it and just gush to you guys about that book. Rees, Brennan, Maureen Johnson, Kelly Link, and Robert Wasserman. I really happy I picked this up. I wasn't sure what to expect with this bind-up because I've read the other 2 bind-ups by Cassandra Clare in the past, and I quite enjoyed those, but I loved this one. I was so thrilled about this one. This gave so much context for the stories that I love, and through the infernal devices and the mortal instruments and the dark artifices, created so much context and so much extra layers for these characters as well, especially Tessa and brother Zachariah. I can't give too much away obviously because of spoilers, and I also loved seeing some snippets of the Chain of Gold characters that before now I had not read anything about, and this just made me it made me fall in love with these Chain of Gold characters and getting to know them before the book comes out. It just made me so much more excited for Chain of Gold, because when Chain of Gold was announced, I wasn't that excited for them. Like, I was excited to read it, but I wasn't as excited as I have been in the past for like Dark Artifices, for example, because I didn't know the characters. I was more excited for Wicked Powers because obviously I already knew those characters and I already knew what they were like, but reading these novellas about these characters made me so excited for this series that she's going to be putting out from the Infernal Devices, and I cannot wait for March so then I can read it and devour it and just gush to you guys about that. The next book on my list is this book basically follows Elizabeth, who has grown up in the library and is hoping to become a warden, which she is an apprentice learning to become. She's been told her whole life that sorcerers are evil, but due to some circumstances she has to end up teaming up with this sorcerer named Nathaniel. And oh my goodness, I love this book. I love the characters in this book. I love Nathaniel, I love Elizabeth, I love the demon, which I cannot remember his name for the life of me. It's been a while since I've read this book. I absolutely love this book, and I loved many aspects of the story. There were aspects that I could guess, but I absolutely loved it. I loved seeing her grow throughout the book and him grow, and then working together, the teamwork and the sacrifice in this book, just for them to come to terms on their own. I was just so happy. I love this book. The next book is Aurora Rising by Aime Kauffman and J. Kristoff. This is my first book by these two authors, and oh boy was it an introduction to them. I flew through this book. I think I finished this in a night. I was so gobsmacked by this book. This was probably the first sci-fi book, like really sci-fi book I have ever read, besides The Martian. So I was stunned. I loved so many aspects of this story. I loved the idea of the squad and the integration of the aliens and the humans all fighting together. I loved the conspiracy and then having these mystical parts of the adventure. This book basically follows this character named Tyler Jones. It takes place when he has just rescued this character named Aurora, who has been put in a cryo sleep for 1,000 years, and they don't know why. Him and his squad that have to basically figure out this mystery and the government conspiracy that surrounds them all. And oh my god, I love there's so many characters. The squad basically consists of an alpha, a diplomat, a scientist, a gearhead, a warrior, a pilot, and the mystery girl. That is just straight off the back of the book, and it just kept me intrigued the whole way, and I am so excited for this second book, which is coming out next year, and it has my favorite character on the front of the cover, so I'm really excited for that, and I'm so glad I picked this one up. The next book on my list is 3 Dark Crowns by Kendera Blake. This basically is set in a kingdom where there are triplets born, and when they come to 16, they basically have to ascend to the throne by killing 2 of their sisters, which is such a dark premise, and is why I love this book. I loved meeting each of these queens, and you never know who to root for. They have so many characteristics that you just relate to and can understand where they're coming from. I love seeing how she flawlessly intertwines the 3 storylines. I cannot wait to read the next one. I am so behind. I know there's about 4 books out and I'm only up the first one, but we will get there. The next book is A Gathering of Shadows by V.E. Swab. This is the second book in a trilogy of the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy, and it is one of my favorite series of all time. After reading it this year, I am so happy I picked this up after watching a lot of suggestions from YouTube. Basically, this is set in a world where there are 4 Londons: grey, white, black and red, and it follows this character named Carroll, and who is an Antari, which means he can cross across these Londons. It basically takes place when he has been given this artifact to smuggle across London, and basically all the drama ensues from there. And I loved this book. I loved the characters. The writing was just incredible. I've never, before this book, which I read at the start of the year, I've never seen writing quite like it. It was just incredible. It kept me so engaged, and I just wanted to know what happened. I love this trilogy so much. It is so dear to my heart, and it's become one of my favourite series of all time. The next book on my list is The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chokatsi. I don't know how to say that, I'm sorry. This book basically had all the elements I am looking for. A great setting, fantasy, and it had like these sciencey kind of elements and mythical kind of elements, so I was down for that. This book is basically set in 1889 in Paris. It follows this group of characters who come together to basically perform this task. They're trying to accomplish something that I think it's a heist or a con. There's this group of houses. There are houses that are in power, and it deals with like Egyptian mythology a lot, as well as science / fantasy elements. It is really, really interesting read. I actually might reread this because I want to read it now. And I loved the characters in this story. There are so many magical elements to it as well. I can't wait to read the second one. I'll probably reread it before I read the second one, but I'm so excited. The next on my favourites list is Nocturna by Mahurin. I really enjoyed this book. This book basically follows this prince and this thief whose fates collide because he basically is looking for something that he shouldn't be looking for, basically, and she is a thief who ends up trying to steal something from him, and they basically have to work together to stop this magical threat from tearing the kingdom apart. I really enjoyed this. I quite like the sacrifice that happened in this book and the consequences he has to deal with, and how they have to work together, as well as a lot of the political and underworld kind of elements that come into play in this story as well. I really liked the magic system from memory. I really liked her power. Her power was awesome. I remember loving her character and her powers. It was just phenomenal. I'm really excited to read the second one because I believe this is a series, and I'm really excited to see where she's going to take this series. The next book I want to talk to you guys about is Winter by Marissa Meyer. I actually don't own a copy of this book, so I will put something here to show what the cover looks like. This is the 4th book in the Lunar Chronicles series. It basically starts off with following this girl named Cinder, who is a mechanic in New Beijing, and it's also a side book. So there's all those prejudices that come with being a side book in this world. I really don't want to say more than that, because any more than that is going to give you too much information that you do not need. It is a fantastic series. It combines basically follows a new character for each book, and following the sort of rough outline of a fairy tale. So Cinder for Cinderella, for example, but it is very loosely based. The way she creates such a fantastic retelling of these fairy tales is why I think it's such a well-known and well-loved series. She does a fantastic job of creating these incredible characters that I absolutely love, and I was so happy to finish this series this year, and Winter's definitely going to be my favourite because the conclusion of the series was fantastically executed, as well as Winter being one of my favourites, as well as Scarlet. Scarlet and Winter were my favourite friendship of all time. I just love them, and I love Winter and Scarlet on their own, so I gotta choose Winter. The next book that's also on my list that I actually don't own as well is Circe by Madeline Miller. This basically follows the base outline of Greek mythology of the well-known story of Sorcery. It is basically where she gets trapped in this island and banished there. It's about her story and her journey and how she meets so many beautiful people and how she grows as a person and how she gets basically her story. I love how Madeline Miller puts this turn on this story, this twist that you don't see often put on these Greek mythology myths, and I am a Greek mythology buff, so I absolutely loved this book. And the last book I'm going to mention is I Hope You Get This Message by Farah Naz Rishi. This book is one of my most recent reads, and oh boy did it surprise me. I absolutely loved this book. I finished this book in 2 days. 2 days when I had no time to do anything. So I love this book. I thought it was really, really engaging. I thought the characters were really well. I love how they connected, the stories connected, and how it dealt with prejudices. It dealt with dystopian themes such as corrupt government and all that sort of thing. And are we looking after our planet? Are we not? It dealt with so many issues in this book. I can't possibly name them all. I loved the character growth in this book, how they started somewhere really selfish and then ended up doing things for other people. It was just beautiful. I love this book, and I think more people should definitely pick this up. I love this book. I thought it was really, really engaging. I thought the characters were really well. I love how they connected, the stories connected, and how it dealt with prejudices. It dealt with dystopian themes such as corrupt government and all that sort of thing. And are we looking after our planet? Are we not? It dealt with so many issues in this book. I can't possibly name them all. I loved the character growth in this book, how they started somewhere really selfish and then ended up doing things for other people. It was just beautiful. I love this book, and I think more people should definitely pick this up. Alright guys, that's it for my top 19 of 2019. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree or disagree with my top 19 and what your thoughts on these books are, or what your favourite books of the year are. Definitely hit subscribe and ring the bell to get notified for every time I post a new video. I will leave all the videos links in the description down below, as well as my social media in the description down below. But until next time guys, see ya!